we're really excited to be here today to talk about AI in the digital landscape. I have an amazing panel that are going to be my co-pilots on this journey, as everyone brings a really unique vision and view of what AI can do for affiliate in a digital landscape. For those that don't know me, beyond just being Desiree, and all the other plugs I got earlier today, my name is Desiree Toto. I lead our platform innovation and our tech ops and support teams here at CJ. I'm actually a 17-year veteran of affiliate. I've worn multiple different hats, from client development into product into the role where I'm here today. I'm also going to have the panelists share, when I turn it over to them, their favorite use of AI today. My favorite use is, it actually started during the pandemic. My children had to get up and log on while I was working, and so I used Alexa to create schedules to remind them to get up, brush their teeth, go and eat breakfast. Did you put on new underwear? You know, all of that great stuff. So my kids are still not happy because I've kept those schedules. So now I'll be working away in my office and I'll hear, "Shut up, Alexa, I already brushed my teeth." So I don't need to be the nag. They can get mad at Alexa, and I have a co-parent that is my AI assistant. So that was my favorite use case. So I'm gonna have Tristan start off.
Yeah, thanks. So my name is Tristan Barnum. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Wildfire Systems. If you don't know Wildfire, we are a technology company built mostly for publishers. The idea there is that we make it really easy to do white label extensions. So if you look at like a cashback program, loyalty program, that's sort of what we're known for, is white labeling those, primarily for banks and for financial institutions, but we have lots of clients. And our underlying platform is made to make it easy for publishers to get affiliate links out into the wild, and that is really the idea behind my new baby at Wildfire, which is called RevenueEngine.ai. This is a solution that is developed so that the creators of AI tools can be rewarded for the promotion and for the sales that the links within the content that their AI generates. So if you're driving sales and it's not really you, it's a bot, Revenue Engine is for you. As far as my favorite use of AI, I definitely use it as a co-pilot in my daily life, and I particularly love using it for naming things. I recently named a boat with the help of ChatGPT. That was cool. I named it the Cavalier Cruiser. This is my aunt's tiny little boat that sits on a lake, and she has Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. Oh. And so the Cavalier Cruiser, a little double entendre from ChatGPT, but I also love using it to name products. Almost everything at Wildfire in the last 2 years has been named with ChatGPT's help. So that's kind of my favorite use case.
Very cool.
So maybe I should use ChatGPT to actually rename myself, because my name is pretty hard to pronounce. So it's Marin Sarbulescu. Try saying that 3 times quick. I've been with CJ for a little over 2 years now. I'm leading the engineering department. And I've been working with AI in one way or another for, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years now. One of my favorite ways of using AI would be enjoying the self-driving capability of my car. I drove Sunday night from San Diego. It took me 4 hours, so AI actually came in handy. It's pretty sketchy at times. Like, it just brakes for like a plastic bag, and you like, sometimes I think it wants to kill me, but it works most of the time.
It's working.
Yeah, well, I'm here, right? So it worked. The second way that I enjoy using AI would be, so I have a vegetable garden with plants, some bell peppers and tomatoes and things of that nature. And plants tend to get sick. And I don't have a lot of experience. I just water them and put them in the ground, and that's about it. So I'm using, there are like a couple applications that you can use on your phone. Point at it, it's going to take a picture, it's going to go in the database, do some crunching, and it's going to try and guess what sickness the plant has, right? So that way, me and my wife, we can enjoy the vegetables year round.
The fruits of your labor. Josh.
And I'm Josh Peterson. I'm head of data science and analytics at CJ. And I've been here for a little over 11 years. My team, we create new data products for all of you guys, as well as custom solutions for clients. One of my favorite uses of AI is similar to Marin's, but I love something called computer vision, where you point your phone at something and it tells you what is that product, what is that bug, what is that star, what is that thing out there. So I love using that on a daily basis. I love learning, and it helps me learn more.
Perfect. So let's start off with some definitions. And really make sure we have it defined, because AI, or artificial intelligence, is really a catch-all term for a multitude of different things. So the two areas that we're going to focus on today are machine learning, using data to process information, and that's something you've probably heard a lot about already, but we do a lot of that here at CJ. And then generative artificial intelligence, and that's really the chat GPTs of what we're hearing and all the things that we're doing, where it's creating realistic text and creative and content. So with that said, I'm going to have Josh give us a little timeline on how we got here, because we really want to understand the journey that AI has been on, and just why are we talking about that right now. So I'm going to have Josh share a little bit of a timeline that he shared with me that I thought was really helpful.
Great. So something that was really interesting in researching this is AI isn't new. It's actually quite old. The term artificial intelligence was coined in 1950. And then actually in the 60s, you have your first chatbot comes out. I mean, we're all talking about chatbots today, but back in the 60s, there was a chatbot back then. So fast forward a number of years, not a whole lot happens in that time period. But we have, the internet kind of really gains a ton of steam in the early 90s. 1997, IBM has defeated the first world chess master. And that was done through a technique where it computed all the possible moves and then decided on which move to take next. So it was a lot of computation. A few years later than that, back in 2005, we actually have self-driving, kind of starts back around there. There was a 100-kilometer off-road race that was completed by a self-driving car back in 2005. So that was a big advancement. Then in 2011, IBM, instead of computing possible moves in chess, wins Jeopardy. So once again, a giant in computing is taking language input, winning a big competition with that. Shortly after that, AI gets really good at what I was talking about earlier, computer vision, and identifying images and things in those images. Of all things, it gets really good at identifying cats. So, which I love cats, so that's great. And then in 2012, it's maybe about 80% accurate or so at identifying cats, which is pretty good, but wrong a lot of times. And then fast forward, just 3 years later, in 2015, it's almost 98% accurate, which they consider more accurate than people at that point in time. So you can see things are speeding up. Then a little bit after that, self-driving cars for people in neighborhoods like in Arizona launches. And then fast forward again, in 2022, we have ChatGPT launches and has 1 million users within 5 days. So things have gained a lot of steam, and we're seeing this increasing velocity happen over time.
So if it's so smart, how come it cannot understand my accent? I'm just 2 words, okay, Google, and I need to say it 5 times before, it activates. Anyway.
There are so many companies working on that, by the way.
Thank you.
I was at an innovation day, and there were so many companies solving for children's voices and accents around the world, and it was a really, really cool use.
They should test on mine.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to bring up is that, we're all excited about ChatGPT right now and what it can do, and we feel like it's approachable because, it's on the web, you can go there and have some fun, but I think that a lot of people don't know that AI has been part of your lives for a while now, right? And it started, I think, as simple as, having autocorrect for emails and text and autocomplete, and now in quick canned, smart messages, replies and things of that nature. So it's been with us for a while.
So let's talk a little bit about that learning curve. I think one of the things we all talked about is, and I refer to it as the comfort curve. And so we found this very interesting, and to be able to see how quickly things started getting adopted. Josh?
So one of those things is, you guys look at this chart, you can see something like electricity, where it took decades for US households to adopt and start using electricity. Then you fast forward, look to the other side of the chart, look at something like the cell phone. It got adopted very quickly. And now I think we're seeing the same kind of thing happening with AI. what was even starting to be worked on with neural networks in the 50s was rare. Only a few people could even understand it or use it. And now it's becoming increasingly common and more available. An example of that happening at CJ, I remember back in 2017, we were using machine learning models to build forecasts for clients. And that was, you took all the data, downloaded it on your machine, you let it run, your computer would heat up and maybe start smoking, something like that. It was a task to make it all happen. And now that's something that was done one at a time. And now it's something with how democratized technology has become, is we are running forecasts for thousands of clients in minutes using cloud computing and other kind of modern technology to make it happen. So what used to be hard, only a few players could use, now is becoming increasingly available that a lot more people can use.
So I think you've seen a lot of excitement about AI on this stage. So why are we talking about it today? I feel like we're at a tipping point, really, for AI. And why is it so important that we actually have this session today?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think that one of the things about that adoption curve that's really interesting is that even though AI has been around for a while, the interface changed recently for people. It became accessible in a number of ways. So cloud computing, yes, huge. Now someone else's computer is smoking somewhere out in the cloud. But compute is always getting cheaper and faster. So that's great. We've got Moore's Law on our side. And now we have, in ChatGPT in particular, this very accessible and familiar feeling interface. And probably the first time you've used ChatGPT, if you've used it yet, you sort of are looking at it like a Google search box a little bit. Like, you poke at it and see what it does, and you quickly realize it's not search, but it was that learning curve was really, really not steep. It was a very shallow and easy thing to do. So I think that we're all talking about it now because it is accessible to us for a few reasons, and one of those is definitely the interface.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it is accessible, but so the way the AI, the big LLMs are trained, or it's extremely expensive, like both from a computational point of view, the amount of electricity that needs to go to actually make it smart, and the data, the quantity of data. The difference is right now, like you well said, is that it's so easy to actually download a clone of an LLM for everyone and run it on their own computer, and that spurs entrepreneurship, and even kids can actually play with it, which I think it's great. And you can see, like, on a daily basis, there are dozens of AI applications coming online. You guys can go to a website like there's an AI for that.com, and that's a real website actually. It's really interesting.
It has affiliate links, don't worry.
No, it's just like plug-in.
And I would just echo what you guys are saying. Like, it's just become so much more easy to use, and it's now becoming to a place that I think all of us in a room in our companies, we can take use of these things. You don't have to be an IBM, an Amazon, Google to make use of this today.
I agree, and I think there's also a lot of excitement around it, so people are really interested and intrigued because it's accessible on how it could be used. Like, I have our business process automation team. They went out and actually created an AI that sat on top of their platform, and we call it Dory, which is funny because Dory gets lost, but this helps you not get lost. But they were so excited about trying to create an AI bot within the Microsoft platform that it really got them energized to work on it. And that's what I see AI is really inciting innovation because it is accessible. Multiple people can take advantage of it and create really amazing things. So, next question. Best use of AI and affiliate today?
I can go first on this one. So I think within affiliate management, I think there's a lot of things that we're already seeing great use cases. So one is opportunity identification, figuring out what could that opportunity mean in terms of size and opportunity. That's something that CJ we have. Forecasting, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, I think that's a huge opportunity for everybody. And then I think something that we've also done in the past few years has been fraud detection. Before, that was something that a team of people used tons of signals, data, reports, investigations. They were like, the Sherlock Holmes of the internet. And now we've been able to take all that intelligence, all that data and resources, and combine it together to come up with really good fraud detection models. So that's been a great advancement for, I would say, affiliate, practitioners, management. And since we don't have an advertiser on the panel here today, I think another great use case for advertisers is personalization. Never before has it been so easy to personalize your content, make it immediately, contextualized, addressable, maybe translatable into so many different languages for people. And there's a lot more than just personalization, everything from inventory management, there's dozens of applications out there.
I'm gonna personalize this question a bit more in the sense of, I'm thinking of engineering or software development, right? So we're using this in mainly 3 different ways, and they're general use cases. One would be, for example, we're using GitHub's Copilot for smart debugging and enhanced code generation. Once we have the code, it has to run on infrastructure, right? And it has to run well, free of errors. So for that, we're using AI for anomaly detection. Basically, it's catching errors that we never thought of to predefine before. And the third use case, and this is also very general, would be using AI for onboarding, for training, and making sure that the engineers, they keep their skills sharp. Test them, keep them alive.
Yes.
Make sure they don't fall asleep.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm most excited about that I'm starting to see come into the market is a little bit related to Revenue Engine AI. We're seeing publishers that wouldn't consider themselves publishers, but people out there innovating, getting so excited around what they can do with these generative models, and building new products that have the potential to have their output just be filled with wonderful affiliate links. And so I think my favorite use case right now that I've seen is a site called forgemytrip.com, I want to say. It might be .ai, but I think it's .com. And Forge My Trip is an AI-generated itinerary builder. So if you're going to Santa Barbara and you say, I'm going to be here for 5 days, it's going to ask you, when are you going? Where are you going? And then it asks you a few more questions that can help it with input, like, when do you get there? Do you leave at night? And then a little bit about yourself, like, oh, I'm a vegetarian. I have my family traveling with me. My daughter is 4. Like all of these things, and saying like, I hate museums, or we need to make sure to go to the zoo. So any parameters that you want to give it are great, and then it spits out this beautifully planned itinerary that is directing you to, the zoo, but also a bunch of cool restaurants and a bunch of really neat shopping adventures that you can go on. And when you're clicking on the zoo, you're going through an affiliate link that's running through a revenue engine, and they're making money. And this is like 2 people, like nights and weekends. They have normal day jobs, and in the first 30 days this thing was running, it generated $2,000 in commissions. It was like, oh, neat. This is really exciting, and so I think we're going to start to see lots more things like that popping up.
Did they mention CJU? Because you said about Santa Barbara, so that would have been interesting.
It didn't. I'm not sure that's... if I had said I'm in the affiliate space, it might have. Oh. Give it a little extra input. It'll give you some pretty good recommendations. I love testing the thing on my own city, so I live in San Diego. And I said I was coming to San Diego, and I'm a foodie and like all these things about myself. And it gave me like a perfect itinerary for my city. I was like, this thing works really, really well. And it maps it all out for you, so you're not traversing all over the place. It was...
But see, I think that is something, and we're going to talk later a little bit about pitfalls, but I think what you're talking about is AI is innovating and creating new models, new opportunities for people to really create really great content that's going to make an impact on consumers. So one of the things that I know within our industry in particular, there's been a lot of talk about AI-created content, and there's a stat going out there that's saying about 90% of content by 2026 is going to be AI-generated. And from an industry, from our perspective, where we actually have human-created content, human-created curation that helps consumers because they go there to ingest that content, help them make informed decisions. How do we see that evolving with an affiliate and changing the landscape? So Tristan, I'd love to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think that it's right that there's going to be this like deluge of content, right? And the reason for that is these LLMs are very proficient, prolific. Like they can generate content very quickly. But I think that to the point about some of the difficulties around AI, where you've got to worry about your training set and the size of that and the expense of it, eventually, if your training set is the internet, and the internet has so much more generated content in it. Did anyone see the movie Multiplicity? Do you guys remember this? Where there was like the copy of Michael Keaton, and it got like dumber and more weird as it went on. Like LLMs hallucinate all the time. They'll tell you stuff that isn't true, and you have to look out for that. So I think that as more content gets generated, we're gonna have to get smarter about the training sets that you're training on, or else you wind up with stupid Michael Keaton. You don't want that.
Maybe that year we'll have ChatGPT as a panelist as well. So
Yes.
see what they say just for fun.
Yeah.
But I think, I largely agree with that, but I think one of the problems is we're not going to have purely AI-generated content for those exact problems. I think it's going to be this combination of people plus AI. Maybe that first draft gets really easy, or maybe the productivity, the amount that someone can get done. And I don't think this is just like content you think of articles online, but everything from code that you're writing for computers to images that you're creating for pictures, videos, to content online. But I see that as a pairing of people plus that content. And I think the big problem is the models today, they've been trained to be acceptable, to look right, for those answers to be like, yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. But it doesn't mean that they actually know the context, that they know, they don't have the skill of a medical doctor. They don't have the skill of a lawyer. And actually, that was an example recently. So there was a lawyer that had used ChatGPT to prepare their case, and it came up with great judicial decisions, with great past court cases for reference, and they used that in their case. It turns out none of it was true. So now that lawyer's being in kind of big trouble. They might lose their license, all this other kind of stuff around it. So I think the danger right now is those models are trained to be acceptable. They want you to have an acceptable answer, to say thumbs up, that's the answer that I have. But for them to actually be correct, right? I think that's actually represents a huge technological advancement in the technology that's not there yet. So practitioner plus AI for quite a while.
And I think there has to be a level of trust, right? You don't want to build AI for AI's sake, right? But you also want to be, if you're going to be working with someone or working with a company that's using AI, you want to be able to trust that they are making sure that it's not spitting out something inaccurate that could put you in trouble. So I think there's going to be a big trust factor as AI continues.
Right.
I think there's going to be a lot of content, but I think there's going to be a lot of garbage as well. One thing in AI is garbage in, garbage out. So the model will be just as good as the data that you're training it on, right? So I think that writing original, well-informed, factual content, it's still going to be like a human thing for a while.
So with anything new, there's an adoption curve. We talked a lot about that, and the fear cortex back here. Are we going to want to adopt that? So there are going to be pitfalls and risks, right, with anything that comes out. So I'd love to get your perspective on what do you think is going to hinder AI's innovation and ability to be adopted?
I can go because I have not a fear, but I think there's a big thing that is going to sort of hold back the AI evolution, or at least it's going to give us some headaches, and that would be the bias in AI. Like I mentioned before, right? The model is just as good as the data that is being trained on. And think about, for example, an affiliate. I can see that we could have a model that is being trained on US data, right? For US holidays with US consumer in mind. And then someone tries to take that model and run it into Asia. Well, it's not going to work. It's going to be a disaster, right? Because the model is biased towards US data. There's all kind of bias, and it has all kind of effects. Like, imagine a model that is trying to come up with social topics, social content, and it's being trained on what I consider to be biased sources, like I don't know, Fox News or MSNBC or anything like that. The view, it's going to be pretty skewed. And also, there's been studies for a while now that show that whenever AI was used in things like hiring or criminal justice or credit application, then there's always been a group, like a social group of people that has been disadvantaged one way or another, just because the data that the models were trained on.
So in 3 to 5 years, how do you see AI changing affiliate or how we manage our businesses?
Can I go on first?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I think I can totally see the onboarding of publishers and advertisers, being driven completely by AI, because there's a template, right? You take that template, and then AI can work with each person, and it's going to become this personal assistant, basically. So it's going to grab your hand, and it's going to take you through all the process of onboarding, making sure you got all the training that you need, making sure you have access to the training materials, even testing you out a little bit to make sure that you understand and you know what kind of decisions you're making. Another use case would be data democratization. So basically making sure that everyone, regardless their knowledge about reporting and data analysis, they can actually have access to complex data, right? Right now, if you're trying to use some applications and you're going to the reporting section, to the reporting page, you might get a little bit scared because all the buttons that are staring at you and all a million options and filters. But if you could actually ask, use your voice and just say, hey, give me that report or show me those differences, right? I think that would be a big help for everyone. Obviously, it wouldn't work for me because of my accent again, so I'll be asking 20 times. But for you guys, I think it would be handy.
I think the other thing is that, especially around data analysis, those things that we see a spike or a trend, and today you go and dig into the details and figure out why it happened. I think a lot of that stuff's going to become automatic. That someday maybe you see 100% growth. Why did that happen? Well, it gives you the reasons. Oh, this product went viral because this partner posted it, and the world caught on that day or something. So instead of needing to dig and do all that kind of work, I think you're going to get suggestions, things like that make that a lot easier. That's going to help us make decisions faster. Is it going to find the right recommendation or right suggestion first time? I don't think so. So I think there's going to be still that pair of strategy, expertise, but these things are going to make a lot of our activities a lot easier so we can be more productive.
Yeah, augmenting what we do.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be, like we talked about, the next 3 to 5 years. I think some of this is going to be impacting our businesses by having us have new businesses to work with. I think there's an entire industry that will spring up, that is springing up around supporting all of this AI infrastructure, verification, validation that this is a real image that you're looking at, or a real human-generated piece of content. And I think that that industry where you may bring in an AI expert as an outsourced team that can come in and help you get set up is definitely going to be something that a fair few of you will experience in your companies, I suspect.
So I think we've given you a lot to think about. There's a lot of activity, a lot of excitement, but we always like to leave you guys with how can you put this into practice. So can you share with the audience how they can identify ways that they can use AI in their businesses today?
Sure. I think when you think about opportunities for AI, I think of them in 2 big categories. Automation, where you want to spend less time doing those things that you have to take today, and those things that can be well-defined, that don't have a ton of nuance around them, but are well-defined that you could automate and spend 5 minutes on instead of 2 hours on. So that's one category of things that I would look out for in your businesses. The other one is, what are those activities that are extremely valuable, take a lot of time, and maybe you're only doing once a month because they take so much time? What are those activities that you can actually bring AI, ML to bring bear, so that way instead of doing it once a month, you can do it 1,000 times a day or 30 times a month, something else, so you can take that highly valuable activity and repeat it much more frequently.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that you can all do for your companies is, if you don't have one already in your company, bringing that culture in, this champion of AI, is a really important thing. I know we had a few of them at Wildfire. We are a technology company, so everybody jumped all over that and was really excited to play with ChatGPT when it came out. And I know that we use ML in a lot of our data analysis, and we've been doing that forever. But this is the new hotness, and it needs champions inside an organization. And so if yours doesn't have one yet, and you've never touched an LLM, you've never chatted with one before and talked to one and used one, I would definitely encourage everyone in this room, if you haven't done this yet, just go check out ChatGPT or Bard, or pick an LLM that you've been hearing about and just fire it up and see what it does. I started using it when I had like blank page syndrome. That was like my first use. It would be like tasks I was procrastinating on. I'd finally carve out like, all right, I'm gonna give this thing 30 minutes and I just have to write this email or I have to write this like clause for a document or whatever. Fire it up and like let it work with you on that. Like you're collaborating with a person and you would be surprised how much output you suddenly have. Like you wanna run through your blank page moments and just like knock them off your list and it feels so good to check those off. And you've got this little tool that you can then say, oh, this gives me an idea for a product in my company, or this gives me an idea for some automation that we can do within the company. So all of that stuff usually takes a balance. At Wildfire, we are constantly looking at how does this affect our processes internally, like those things that we can do faster, better, cheaper. But then we also look at it through that product lens. Like how does what you maybe just unlocked creatively translate into something you can provide to your customers? And that was really how Revenue Engine was born too. I was like, you know what we can do with this? Like, ta-da, we can linkify content really, really easily.
The way I look at it is a little bit different, I think. Like to me, if you're responsible for an organization or maybe you have a company where you're running a department, or before thinking of how you can use AI to augment your productivity and introduce it to your people, I need to make sure that the people are actually ready for it.
Yeah.
In the sense that they don't fear it, and they understand how to work with it and so on. Because if people don't embrace it, then it's useless. Like no matter how much you're trying to push it, right? And I have a quick story if I can,
Sure.
right? So my wife Dana, she works in accounting, and every month they have this round table. And usually there's a speaker, and they have a topic, and then at the end of each session, the speaker gets rated. And she usually gets straight 10s, from 1 to 10. She always gets 10s. She's much smarter than me, obviously. But the last topic that she talked about was about AI and how AI can actually replace, not outright, but can replace some of the tasks, how we can replace some of the tasks that our people do with AI. And for some people, actually, we could eliminate their jobs. And it was the first session when she got 2 grades of 6. And she was devastated. Like she was, oh my God, this is not possible. Like how bad, I could have done and so on. And then she looked at the comments. There were, of the people that graded her the 6s. And it came out so clearly to me and to her, like how some people really feel threatened, about AI. And more than that, they feel offended. Like how can you even think that, AI, like some robot somewhere, vacuum robot can actually replace me and take my job, right? And you can see that with some of that with the strike, right, in Hollywood, like how people are fighting against some of that and are trying to protect their jobs and their livelihoods. So again, I think it's important for us to educate ourselves, like you were saying, right, what AI can do, and then to help educate our people.
Right. So have a trusted partner, have a champion, and look for ways that you can play with AI today. I think this is, are really great takeaways. So I'd love to be able to turn it around to the audience for some Q&A if people have questions. We will have a mic.
If you can't think of any questions, you can ask ChatGPT to generate some for you.
We were going to have ChatGPT do all our Q&A, but we decided not to. So raise your hand if you have any questions.
A lot of the work I do is in spreadsheets. A lot of the work I do is in spreadsheets. You pull a sheet from one thing and VLOOKUP it to another thing and upload it to a third thing, and not just like in Microsoft Word writing cool poetry about marketing or something. Like, have you guys seen tools that you can say like, hey, pull this data set, run it against that data set, like change all the CIDs to PIDs and like upload it to this other thing?
So you guys can talk. I want to talk a little bit about what we're prototyping in engineering, but you can answer it directly. Go ahead.
Spreadsheet, that's you, dude.
I used to be the spreadsheet guy. I missed my chance on YouTube. But for spreadsheets, I think specifically like those overall process end-to-end workflows, especially if you're transforming or manipulating data, I would say there's good opportunity for maybe not something within a spreadsheet, but another system that could perform all that transformation end-to-end, so you don't need the spreadsheet to do it. The second part is ChatGPT is really good at giving you spreadsheet formulas. If you're like trying to extract some text or do something like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be like a formula this wide, it's really good at that. You should just try it, it's a lot of fun.
So what I just wanted to share were some of the things that we were testing in engineering. Both Marin and Josh have been working with some of our engineers on how we can use our network data and how you can speak in a natural language format to get information back. I think Marin talked a little bit about, imagine going into insights and just saying, I want this data, and have all those filters come back and give you that information. So we're testing out ways to use AI today so we can better help you, so maybe you would never have to use a spreadsheet again. No spreadsheets!
Hallelujah.
Spreadsheets are the spice of life.
I know. Well, I mean, even if you look at, like, they're building AI into, like, Microsoft. So if you go into, like, the pivot table, they can actually make recommendations and they start learning. So it is really interesting that, like, it's already starting being built into a lot of tools that you're seeing and using today that you don't even realize it sometimes, so.
Yeah, we use Google Sheets, and I am terrible at Google Sheets. Terrible at all spreadsheet things. I'm constantly having to look up how to do everything, and I also have someone on my team that's amazing with spreadsheets, and so I would always be like slacking her, like, I need some help with this document, and she noticed that I stopped asking her so much, and it was because of the little AI like built into into Google Sheets. I could just tell it what I was looking for, and it would like find it for me and draw me a graph. I'm like, this
Perfect.
is fantastic. Sorry, Erin, get back to your real job. Stop helping me with the spreadsheets.
All right, yeah, I guess my question is, how is CJ thinking on like the publisher recruitment side or the network side of matching advertisers with publishers? Because I think that would be a really helpful way. Like I could put in, I'm this brand looking for this type of publisher, and then it could feed me publishers like that.
So we've got, I would say two things. One, recruit partners today in the platform. You can put all sorts of kind of filters and preferences in there to sort through partners. But that's nice filters, great data, great capability. But we've been working on some AI recommendation models that are kind of like, I would say like the Netflix things. You watch some things, other brands have watched those same things, what are the other publishers they've used. So I think that is going to be a big opportunity within, I would say, more traditional affiliate, but also especially within influencer marketing. So I think some of that, more stuff will come out related to those things.
We just want to make sure it tells you the right thing. So like, we want to be that trusted partner and make sure that it's making the right recommendation, so we have to test it.
And then also respond to feedback. That if it gives you a recommendation, you don't like it, it learns from that and gives you better recommendations over time. So.
Exactly. All right, well, thank you guys. Thank you guys for being a wonderful audience.